Okay, so let's look at what are the trends that are impacting the corporate world. There are something which is happening in the corporate world today. There are a few things which are happening. These are the trends. Dear participants, large corporations are breaking down today. Corporations which had hundreds and thousands of people, lakhs of people, they are now breaking down into smaller organizations. Corporations which had become very large and big, they have realized that it is untenable, it's unrealistic to run large corporations. And to make it more manageable, viable, tenable, and profitable, they're breaking down organizations into smaller parts. So in the recent past, in the recent years, we saw a large organization called Hewlett Packard got broken down into two separate organizations. Then that there was subsequent subdivisions in the organizations that got separated into two. So, and that's not just one example. There are many such examples where we are seeing large organizations are breaking down into smaller units. Many industries and products are going to become the things of the past very soon. So let me share with you an interesting example. In 1955, um, there were many companies which were in the Fortune 500 list. You know, the Fortune 500 list, the top organizations in the industry, in the world. Today, in 2020, about 11% of those Fortune 500 companies are in the Fortune 500 list. Remaining 89% of the organizations, my dear participants, have disappeared. They have not just moved out of the Fortune 500 list, they have completely disappeared from the industry. So, what has happened? 89% of organizations which were in the top 500 companies in the world in 1955, in about 65 years' time, these companies have run out of business. This is an interesting trend that are happening. Industries, products, organizations are going out of business. Large organizations are breaking down, old organizations are disappearing, new age companies are ruling the world. So organizations like Google, Flipkart, Uber, YouTube, and there's this new age companies, Airbnb, Ola. These new age companies have started ruling the world. These companies today probably have a significant share of the total, share of the market in terms of, market cap, the revenue share, and all of that. And these are the most valued companies. They're few of the most valued companies in the industry today. What has driven that change? These companies do not have large offices. They do not have huge infrastructure. They have a very small workforce, but they are the ones which are actually ruling the industry, they're ruling the economy. This has marked the beginning of the knowledge economy in our times. We are going through times of accelerated change. Change and disruption have become normal. Automation, robotics, technology, RPA, artificial intelligence, etc., are actually changing the game in the industry. Many of the work that people used to do in the past manually, work which was performed by human beings, is now being replaced by machines. Machines and men are working together at the same workplace. So today in the corporate world, men and machines are coexisting. They're living together. They're working together. They're managing different parts of the same workflow in the organization. What else is happening? Multiple generations are working together. So at the workplace today, we have the baby boomers, we have Gen X, we have Gen Y, we have Gen G. They're all working together. 3 out of 4 people in the workforce are millennials. They're either Gen Y or Gen G. People's careers are no longer a linear path. In the corporate world, people used to come after completing their education, after spending about 20, 22, 23, 24 years of education, completing their degree or the master degree or professional qualification, professional degrees, they used to come to the corporate world. They used to stay there for about 30, 35 years, and they used to retire. So the people's careers used to be a linear path: education, job, retirement. Education for about 20, 22 years, a job for about 30, 35 years, then retirement for the rest of the life. But today that has changed. In our societies, we find people who start their education, and halfway through their education, higher education, they decide to take a break. They decide to go and pursue their passion, maybe music, or they go on a world tour, or they go and pursue their hobby, and they want to come back to education. They continue with their education, study for some time, then go and work for some time, for a few years, come back and complete their PhD or a master's degree, go back to work again, work for a few years, and then probably take a break and then go and do charity for some time and work for an NGO for a few years, come back. And today there is nothing called retirement, because people in their retirement are also very active, earning handsome income and doing something which is very meaningful and purposeful, satisfying to them. So people's careers today are not a linear path. Gig economy has become the order of the day, and it's very important for you to understand because it has an impact on education. Most of the trends that I'm talking about also have an impact on education. Gig economy has become the order of the day. So when it's a gig economy, today corporations have full-time employees, part-time employees, contract employees, freelancers, and their employees who are working for multiple employers at the same time. This is what gig economy is all about. So now as educational institutions, you'll have to think, you are training people for what? Are you training them to become permanent, full-time employees in an organization? Or you are training them to become a freelancer, training them to become a part-timer, training them to become a professional who is going to work for multiple organizations at the same time? Workplace has become global, virtual, mobile, anytime, any place. So earlier days, workplace used to be the office where people used to go and come back home. Now the workplace is not any particular city, any particular building in a city. It can be anywhere. People can be working anywhere from any part of the globe. Might be working from their homes, from a coffee shop, might be working at the airport, or might be working at the doctor's clinic, waiting for their turn to meet the doctor. The workplace has become global, virtual, and mobile. These are the trends which are impacting the corporate world today. As we move on to the next slide, can we move on to the next slide? Can you move? Yes. No, the previous slide, please. Previous slide. Trends impacting education. Yes. So as we look at, so we talked about the trends impacting the corporate world. Now let's look at the trends impacting the education world. Please go back to the slide which has trends impacting the corporate world. Yes. So there are a few interesting things which are happening in the education space. The most important trend that we see in the education space is the fact that knowledge is fast becoming obsolete. Knowledge which was relevant yesterday is not relevant today. Knowledge which is relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow. Knowledge that is required tomorrow does not exist today. It is going to evolve over the next few years. So that's an interesting trend that we are seeing in the education space. This is also impacting the corporate world. So educational institutions are grappling with the fact, how can they keep pace with the evolution of knowledge, which is just becoming obsolete every day, every now and then? How can they update the curriculum at that pace? How can they update their course content at that pace? How can they changes their program and curriculum structure at that pace? So that's the big challenge for educational institutions. Employers value skills over qualification. 15 top corporates in the world have announced that they are no longer going to look at qualification as a criteria for selection. If you bring up the next slide, in the next slide, you can see the list of corporations who have decided that they're not going to look at qualification or educational qualification anymore. Please bring up the next slide. Yes. This slide gives you a list of corporates which have decided, which have announced publicly that they're not going to look at qualification. So some of the companies in that list are Google, the Hilton Hotels, Apple, IBM, Bank of America. These organizations have said, we're not going to look at qualification. Let's move to the next slide. As we move to the next slide, the trends in education. Yes. So when organizations and more organizations start announcing the fact that they were not going to look at educational qualification anymore, this is a big threat for educational institutions. Educational institutions prepare students to become degree holders. They prepare them to become engineers, prepare them to become MBAs, they prepare them to become an MTech or a BTech. But if the organization don't value that, then what's the point? Another interesting trend that we are seeing is alternate modes of learnings are available today. So today, education is not the prerogative. Education is not the sole authority. The education is not just controlled by academic institutions. There are thousands of education providers, from smaller ones to large organizations. You might have heard about the MOOCs providers, and they have become a big threat to conventional education system. When we talk about the Udemy's and then the Coursera's and the edX's of this world, they actually have challenged the best universities in the world today, because they're providing skill-based, accelerated learning programs. Many industries and products are going to become things of the past very soon. So some of the industries are also going to disappear. Some of the organizations are going to disappear. Many jobs that people do today will not be performed tomorrow. Many products that companies are selling today may not be sold in future tomorrow. So we have seen with the COVID-19 crisis looming large, we have seen real estate industry, airlines, hotel industry, tourism industry, hospitality industry, consumer products. Many of these industries are actually getting severely impacted. If people are not going to travel, they're not going to buy suitcases and briefcases. They're not going to buy luggage or baggage. They're not going to fly. They're not going to buy a flight ticket if they're not going to fly. So there are many industries which are getting impacted. Some industries will survive. Some will actually become distinct. They'll become obsolete. Technology is shifting the balance of power, putting knowledge at the center stage. So it's not the traditional economy, where the economy was of products and goods. Today's economy is the knowledge economy. And because of the power of technology, knowledge today is at the center of everything. And today, in the good old days, power rested with the wealthy and the rich. Power rested with the ones who had political backing. But today, power is with people who have knowledge. Wealth can come to somebody who has knowledge. I'll give a simple example of a doctor, a homeopath in Indore, who has who decided, who understood the power of social media as a technology. This doctor, this homeopath in Indore, he decided, he had a Facebook account, and he bumped into this feature in Facebook called Facebook Messenger. And then he decided, he understood the power of this tool, and he made more friends on Facebook. And then he used to ping them on Facebook Messenger, send them a message saying, hey, I am so and so, a homeopathic doctor from Indore, and if you have any ailment, if you have any disease, if you have any health problem, do write in your problem on the messenger window. I would give you the prescription of medicines for free. And once you go through the treatment, if you have benefited from it, you may pay if you want to pay. But otherwise, this treatment is free. This gentleman understood the power of Facebook as a technology. He understood the power of social media as a technology. Today, he has more than 1 lakh customers, patients across the globe who write to him and with their problems, and he prescribes medicines to them. The power of technology. A doctor in Indore would have got probably 1 or 2 patients, would have seen 1 or 2 patients every day, sometimes maybe no patients. But today he has thousands of patients from all over the world. Power of technology. The technology can provide you the access, can provide you the reach, the penetration, the coverage. And what this doctor did, he used his knowledge. And because of technology, technology has put knowledge at the center stage. We are living through times of accelerated change. I don't have to talk about it. And attention span of learners is reducing. So this is an important trend which is impacting the education space. And many of the professors, teachers, faculty members that I meet often tell me that, Mr. Mohapatra, now it has become very difficult to teach students because the attention span is very, very short. Scientists have established the fact that the attention span of people today, especially students today, is less than 7 minutes. So if every 7 minutes, they're likely to switch off and then look at something else. They might look at the WhatsApp messages, they might Google and try to find something, or they might be doing something else, but they may not be listening to you in the classroom because the attention span is very, very short, is about 7 minutes today. And the challenge for education, academicians, is to look at a curriculum where the deployment and delivery strategy changes every 7 minutes. Every 7 minutes, you do something different to retain the attention of your students. So these are some of the trends that we are seeing in the education space. Let's move on. All right, so we saw the trends in the corporate world, we saw the trends in the education space. Now let's talk about the road ahead. Let's talk about the challenges that we are facing in the education space and how do we overcome them by looking at some of the best practices the corporates have. This is something very, very alarming. Peter Drucker said in 1997. So when I say 1997, which was about 23 years ago, Peter Drucker said, 30 years from now, the big university campuses will be relics. Universities won't survive. It is as large a change as when we first got the printed book. This is an alarming statement. Most of us don't like this statement. We don't want this to become true. But all of us respect Peter Drucker. We know that he is one of the he's one of the best management gurus, business experts that we ever had. So we also believe that he probably may not be wrong. Now, the interesting question is this really going to happen? Are universities going to disappear in another 7 years? Because he said this in 1997. Let's not answer this question now. Let's park it for a moment, for some time, and let's move on with the session. But we'll come back and talk about this. Let's move on. Let's move on, please. Yes. So, irrespective of what Peter Drucker said, whether his prediction is going to be right or wrong, true or false, doesn't matter. But I think what it clearly indicates is that the education academia world is actually in deep trouble. It is heading into trouble. I think all of us would probably agree with that. And we know that there are deep challenges that the educational world is facing today. We know that number of engineering colleges have closed down in the last few years. And many colleges which are still running do not have enough students. We know that many MBA colleges, B schools have closed down in the recent past. We also keep hearing reports which says about 7% of students who graduate from universities and colleges are employable. Just about 7% in our country. And that's what the statistics say, that's what the researchers have said. Just about 7% of people who pass out from universities and colleges with professional degree are employable. So what happens to the remaining 93%? Probably they're not employable, or they are in an employment which is not befitting their qualification. There may be an MBA in probably finance, or maybe an MBA in marketing, might be taking calls in a call center. Job probably a 12th standard pass out can do. We might be having an engineer, a BTech or an MTech or an MBA doing that job today. So they are definitely underemployed in that sense, or they do not have employment befitting their qualification. So these are some of the challenges that we see today. Colleges and universities are closing down. Students who are passing out from these universities are not employable. So let's go a little deep dive into the challenges and then understand what's happening. There are a few things which are happening which are a matter of concern. The quality of education in educational institutions is actually missing. There is a gap. We see a clear gap in the quality of education. The focus has been towards quantity. I'm not generalizing this. I'm not saying every institution is focusing on quantity, but I'm saying we have a problem with quality in our education system. The focus on rote learning and pattern recognition has been strong rather than learning through application. So universities are providing curriculum which is theoretical, conceptual, and people are graduating by demonstrating their ability to memorize information, memorize concepts and ideas, and reproduce that in the examination center. But it's not based on application. Lack of quality faculty members. With my due respect to all of you, I know that all of you are doing your best. You come from the best universities. You have the right intent and passion to give your best to the students. But when we look at the larger spectrum in our educational institutions, we see that the best of students choose a career other than education, other than academics. They believe that a career outside academics is more lucrative. So the best are going out, and the best are not coming to um, the education world or the academic space, unless somebody, or those of you who are really passionate about this cause of inspiring people and inspiring the next generation. The curriculum is not keeping pace. And we looked at one of the trends earlier where we talked about how knowledge is becoming obsolete every now and then. So when knowledge becomes obsolete every now and then, it becomes difficult for educational institutions to keep pace with that change. So the curriculum is fast, while the knowledge is getting fast obsolete, the curriculum is getting fast outdated. That's a challenge that we are facing today in the academic world. Lack of research in academic institutions. The focus in academic institutions has been more on the curriculum deployment and delivery, and less on the research space. And in many in educational institutions, research wing exists for the namesake, and the quality of research has dipped significantly. While the number of research papers being written every year has increased, but when you talk about the quality of research papers, which are getting international acclaim, which are getting published in international journals, which is getting widely recognized in the international community, is very less, because the quality of research has gone down. Lack of motivation in taking risks. Educational institution needs to take the risk. But I think there's a risk appetite which has significantly reduced. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with me or not, but if we go and talk to our students and ask them, why have you enrolled yourself for this program, an MBA program or an engineering program, most of them would tell you that I am paying for a degree, not education. So these are the challenges that the academia world are grappling with today. Now let's move on quickly in the interest of time. Let's quickly look at how the expectations students have changed over time. If we move to the next slide, and the next slide now, this subsequent slides will talk about how the expectation of students have changed. Now the students are saying, can the education be personalized for me? Because I want to work in a company and also study here. Can you, and then I require certain specific skills. Your MBA program is generic. I don't need all of this. I need probably certain specific skills. So can your program be tailor-made to my needs? Can this be personalized? Next one. Can education system provide me flexibility? Can I learn from anywhere? Can I come in for 2 days a week and attend classes? Remaining 4 days I'm at work, or I'm probably studying at home myself. So can you give me that flexibility? Adaptability. The next one is adaptability. So can you adapt to my pace? I'm a fast learner. I don't want to be in a classroom where 30 other people or 50 other people are there. I'm an experienced guy. Others are freshers or have less experience. I can move fast. So can the curriculum adapt to my pace? I'm a slow learner. I cannot move as fast as the other learners in the class. Can the curriculum adapt to me? Can it go slow with me? So this is an expectation. The next one, technology enabled curriculum. So can you enable the curriculum which is technology enabled? I don't have to come here. I don't have to come to the classroom. I can learn from anywhere through curriculum which is available on your learning management system. I can log in, I can go through, I can do practice, I can do hands-on, I can do simulation. Can you use the best of technology to enhance your curriculum so that I can get the best out of it. Next one is purpose. Can education help me find my purpose and accomplish my purpose? I know education may help me to some extent to find a job. It may help me prepare better for my career in an organization or in an industry. But can education help me find my purpose? I want to find my purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. And I also want help to accomplish the purpose of my life. Can the education system help me accomplish that? If you move to the next slide, this is clearly what students are expecting from the universities of the future. Can you provide me personalized learning? Can the learning be flexible for me? Can learning adapt to my pace and my level of proficiency? Can the curriculum be enabled by technology and then be best in class? And can the education system or can my university help me find and accomplish my purpose? This is clearly the expectation from the students, from as far as the educational institutions of the future are concerned. The question to ponder, the question to contemplate is, are we moving in that direction? Students also look at, they have another expectation. I will please, let's go to the next slide and I'll share with you what else students expect. They have one more expectations. The students community is worried about the fact that by the time they complete their degree and be ready for a job, that job may have already been taken away by a machine, by a robot, by artificial intelligence. So they're asking you to teach them what machines cannot do. They know that many things machines can do, and many things that they're learning today, machines will take away those jobs from them. How can they know and learn to do something what machines can never be able to do? We'll talk about it. Let's move on. So let's take a pause now and then ask ourselves this question. Basis all that we have discussed, we have listened to so far, are we feeling optimistic or pessimistic about the future? You may want to use the chat window and then send me your response in the chat window. Just say optimistic or pessimistic. All that you have seen, all that you have discussed so far. Use the chat window. I'm requesting the participants and give your response. Are you feeling optimistic or are you feeling pessimistic? I've started seeing optimistic, quite a lot of optimistic. A few pessimistic has come. Great, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I think majority of you are saying optimistic. So this means that you don't agree with what Peter Drucker said in 1997. If his statement had an iota of the truth, you as the leaders of the education industry today are going to prove him wrong. Fantastic. I think our optimism is very, very encouraging. But this optimism needs to be backed up by action, by pragmatism, by transformation, by an exponential change. And how do you make that happen? What can we learn from the corporates? Let's go to the next slide. This slide talks about what's changing in the corporate world today. In the corporate world, in the learning space, which I belong to, there are a few things that are happening. In the good old days, we used to announce a calendar, training calendar. The learning and development department in the corporate would announce a training calendar would invite people to enroll for programs, for training events. We are moving away from that. We are now moving towards learning journeys. So we are saying learning is not a 2-day classroom event anymore. Learning is a journey. If you're a first-time manager, you'll have to go through a 6-month learning journey in the corporate, which is going to be a combination of some self-paced learning, some classroom training, some mentoring assignment session, some project assignment, etc., etc., etc. But it's going to be a journey um, stitched together, which would stitch together a number of interventions: classroom training, self-paced learning, self-study, mentoring, projects, assignments, um, delivering classes and sessions by the participants, and so on. That's a significant change that's happening in the corporate world. Um, Topic driven to business needs driven. So earlier within the corporates, L&D functions used to announce a topic. They used to say there is a negotiation skills training program. There is a influencing skills training program. There is a presentation skills training program. But now it's changing. Now the L&D leaders the L&D practitioners in corporates are announcing business drivers. They are the business drivers. Business needs are becoming the drivers of programs, not the topics. Education within the corporate world used to be formal. Classroom training, formal sessions, assessments, a pass or a fail. Today, education in the corporate world has become a mix of formal and informal. There is formal curriculum that you need to complete. There are informal engagement sessions, networking sessions, peer-to-peer sessions, sessions with subject matter experts. So it has become a blend of formal, informal. Earlier in the corporate world, education used to be based on concepts and knowledge. Today, it's about skills and behavior. It's about application of concepts and knowledge, demonstrating the right behaviors and skills. It's about translating your learning into application. Learning in corporates used to be generally low tech, largely classroom driven. Today it's online, social, mobile, classroom, high tech in the true sense. In the corporate world earlier, the managers used to play a very passive role. Once they nominated their team members for training, they felt it's the L&D function which will take care of the rest. Today, managers are actively involved. They get to know what is happening. They get regular updates about their team members. If the team members are not participating in the program, they step in and then have a coaching conversation with the team members, and they very actively follow and understand and try to remain updated about how are the team members progressing. In the classroom, in the programs, in the past, in the corporates, measurements were minimal. We did not really measure much, except for some trainee feedback, trainee reaction, etc. But today the measurements are stringent. The measurement in learning is about behavior change. If 20 people are nominated for a particular program, are we seeing changes in their behavior? It's also, measurement is also about business impact. Has revenue increased? Has customer satisfaction increased? Has cost been reduced? Has employee turnover decreased? And so on. So that's a significant shift that's happening in the corporate world. I strongly believe that academia should leverage some of the shifts that are happening in the corporate world. These are actually the best practices in the corporate world. What else is happening in the corporate world? As we look at the next slide, you can very clearly see there's a shift happening in the corporates, in the learning space. And on the left side, you can see the old paradigm. On the right, you can see the new paradigm. The old paradigm, or the old approach, was L&D being a strategy enabler. Those of you have experience in the corporate or have exposure would know a function like HR or L&D or quality would be called support functions. So that's how they are described as. In some other companies, they're called enabling functions. But today, the shift that's happening in the industry is functions like HR and L&D are not just enablers, they're strategy accelerators. They're not enabling function to the business, but they're part of the business today. HR and L&D are part of the business. They have a very clear, tangible, objective expectation to meet business objectives, to create business impact. The goals of an L&D leader today is to look at revenue generation, to look at cost reduction, to look at attrition reduction, to look at customer satisfaction. So the L&D practitioners are expected to deliver this business impact. That's the strategic shift that's happening in organizations. Learning and development function used to be high quality services provider. They used to provide best of content, but today they have become proactive influencers. Content, learning and development practitioners used to be content creators. Now they are content curators because content today has been democratized. Content is accessible to everyone. It is available everywhere. So we don't have to create additional content unless it's in a niche area. Any content which is generic, it's all there. If you go to internet, if you log into YouTube, if you search through Google, if you go to different education sites, MOOCs providers, there is just humongous amount of content. You don't have to create additional content. That's sheer waste of time. But what is important today is there is plethora of content for students, for employees in corporates. They don't know what is relevant and what is not relevant to them. The L&D leaders play a very important role by curating the right content and directing people. So that's a significant shift that's happening in the learning and development space in corporates. The earlier approach was a structured learning path, a structured learning approach, which was well defined. Now, this is a culture of continuous learning. We say that organizations should become the centers of continuous learning. That's where they need to pick up best practices from educational world and run those continuous learning programs in organizations. In the good old days in corporates, we had trainers, instructors, teachers. Today we have got facilitators of learning networks. A lot of learning happens through networks, through communities of practice within organizations. If there are a group of people who are finance executives, they have a community of practice of finance professionals. There are community of practices of supply chain professionals, a community of practice of HR professionals. This community members come together, they exchange their ideas, they learn from each other. The learning and development professional becomes the facilitator of those networks. From teaching skills, the shift has been to teaching effective learning habits, because employees today understand that they can find learning anywhere, because learning content is commonplace today. So all that they need to do is inculcate that learning habit in the employees, and I'm sure they would figure out how to access that learning, where to access. In the past, content used to be defined, set, structured. Today, content is dynamic, changing all the time. In the past, in corporates, training used to be events. Today, training is learning journeys. In the past, information was available in silos. Today, it's a world of corporate world is a world of connected information. It's available with people, it's available with systems, it's available in knowledge repositories, and they're all connected. Corporate executives, corporate L&D leaders are trying to connect people to information, information to people, people to people. That's something corporate L&D practitioners are trying to do. They're trying to make sure that the right information reaches people, the and they're also making sure that people understand and find out where information exists. They also understand that they need who are the other people that they should connect. So people to information, information to people, people to people. So it's a connected world of it's the web of information. It's the knowledge web which exists today in corporates, or we are getting there um, very, very quickly. As we move on, I think it's very clearly the difference between success and failure today is a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is I have fixed knowledge. My knowledge cannot expand beyond this. In my organization, this is not possible. This has never happened. This cannot be done. We are not moving in the right direction, but I cannot do anything about it. That's a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is about, all right, we have a problem. Let me take the responsibility of addressing this problem. I think I have the resources and the influence and the ability to make a change. I may not have all the answers. I may not know everything. I may not have all the tools at my disposal, but I can find out where the resources are available. I can find out where the information is available. I can find out who can help me, but I can take the responsibility of driving a change. That's what growth mindset is, is what all about. In the corporates, as we move to the next slide, we are talking about 10 important skills for learning and development practitioners. I think this would also mirror very well for the academic world. The trainers in the corporates, the training managers, the training leaders need to possess these 10 skills. They need to have empathy and love for people. They need to have the ability to influence and persuade leaders and other colleagues. They need to become consultants, performance consultants. They're not just trainers. They should act as consultants. They should talk to a department in the organization and then say, hey, I'm a performance consultant to your business. Your business is not performing steadily for the last 3 years. I need to understand where are the performance gaps, and I can come and help you. That's what performance consulting is all about. Ability to cope with ambiguity. The corporate world, the business world is filled with ambiguity, volatility, complexity, uncertainties. And the L&D leaders need to understand how to cope with this. Connecting with Gen Next. I think the academia world is also facing this challenge. The challenge that we're facing today is you are facing a younger generation whose taste and preferences about learning is very different. Creative thinking and innovation, data analytics, understanding business ecosystem, machine learning, using technology and digital platforms in learning. These are the top 10 big ticket skills for learning and development practitioners in the corporate. I can strongly vouch for it. This can be a best practice that academia can look at. This should, when they look at the teaching staff, the professors, the faculty members, I think they need to have empathy. They need to have influencing skills. They need to become performance consultants. They should, the professors, the teachers, the faculty members in universities need to stay part of the academic world, go to organizations, go to companies and enterprises, and then say, hey, using my research, using my knowledge, I would like to work with you to solve a business problem that you have. If I'm a finance professor, I should work with an organization, understanding the financial health of an organization and helping that organization improve the financial health. If I'm a professional in marketing, I should be able to work with a company and come up with a marketing strategy for their products and actually uh, deploy that strategy and demonstrate that you can make a difference. Our academy, our professors need to become performance consultants. They need to stay part of the classroom and then be part of the industry and actually drive a change. They need to have the ability to deal with ambiguity. They need to develop the knowledge of technology and digital platforms. They should understand data analytics because the future is all about data. Today, using data, a learning and development professional can figure out which section in a particular module is actually boring, students are not liking it, which content is being followed by majority of students, which is not being followed, which section of a particular module is too complex and students are not understanding that. Analytics has the capability to give you all these insights. These are the top 10 future skills for AMD practitioners. I would say that the Academy Award should look at these skills as well when we talk about leveraging the best practices. Now let's move on. Next slide. So what are the opportunities? We talked about crisis. We talked about what's changing in the corporate world. What does it mean? What opportunities it provides to the academic world? So please move on to the next slide. And please click a few times and you can see a few pictures. And if I ask you, you can see pictures of 6 business tycoons. You have Bill Gates here, you have Richard Branson, you have Dhirubhai Ambani, and so on. Now the question is, what is common between all 6 of them? All right. One thing that's common between all 6 of them is none of them have a university degree. They do not have a formal university degree, but they are business tycoons. They have reached the pinnacle of success in business and industry. What makes them successful? Let's look at the next slide. What academia do not teach students today? Here are the few things that we do not teach our students in our campus. But these attributes are extremely important for professional success. If you don't teach them, how can they become successful as they pass out of your educational institution with a professional degree? The degree will not be valuable enough if they don't have these abilities or these attributes. In the academic setup, we don't teach them the ability to think. We don't teach them the ability to deal with failure. We don't teach them how to deal with ambiguity. We also don't teach them how to deal with the frustration of this ambiguity. We don't teach them how to influence. We don't teach them emotional intelligence. We don't teach them how to love, how to have empathy and compassion. These attributes are absolutely essential for personal and professional success. If our students don't have these attributes, their degree, their MBA, their MTech degree or BTech degree will not take them very far. But the names that we saw in the previous slide, they, without a formal degree, had the right ingredients of success. They had the ability to deal with failure, they could deal with ambiguity, they could influence, they could think and become creative, they could innovate. They were emotionally intelligent, not just intelligent in terms of IQ, but they had great EQ as well. And they had a social purpose. They wanted to make a difference to the world. They had compassion for the world. and they made a big difference. When Bill Gates started Microsoft as an organization, he had no idea that he would become the richest man in the world. He became the richest man in the world is a different matter. But he started Microsoft with a purpose to make a difference to this world. His purpose was to make a software which the common man can use. He became the richest man in the world is a different matter. When Captain Gopinath started Air Deccan, he did not know that his airline would become very profitable, and then another airline called Kingfisher would want to buy it. But he had one purpose. His mission was to start an airline which will help common Indians to fly. These leaders had a social mission. So it's important that we also find a way to teach these attributes to our students inside our campus. Let's move on. So it's time to step up the game. We need to bring in experiential learning into the classroom, get our students to dirty their hands. We need to look at the German system where students spend a day in the classroom, 4 days in the shop floor. We have to stop spoon feeding our students, teach them to fish. Of course, we need to provide them an opportunity to fail. A safe environment where they can fail. Failure will have no consequences, but they must taste how to fail. But they must learn how to experiment, make mistakes, and fail. Multidisciplinary education. Students of economics need to be taught technology. Students of technology need to be taught English language. Students of technology need to be taught geography, economics, and so on. Multidisciplinary education is absolutely important. Students of physics need to be taught psychology as well. Provide faculty members a stint in the industry. The faculty members need to be part of the industry, have a stint there, work there for a few years. Define accountability, measurable metrics for academics. Corporates have very clearly defined metrics. The profitability goals, the business goals, the revenue goals, their customer CSAT goals, the social responsibility goals. Academic institutions need to have clearly defined, clearly measurable metrics, not just the number of admissions and placements, but more stringent, meaningful metrics, measurable metrics, which will hold them accountable for the quality of education and the quality of students they produce. As we move on, as we begin the journey, but it's not about beginning the journey because all of us have started the journey. As we continue this journey, we can see there are two paths leading in two different directions. One leads to mediocrity and the other one leads to excellence. The choice is ours. But unfortunately, there is no third path. There are just two. We have to choose between these two. We have to choose to become mediocre as an educational institution, as a professor, as a faculty member, as an educator. I have a choice to become mediocre, or I have a choice to become excellent. Unfortunately, as you click again, you can see that there is no third option. We have to choose between the two. Let's move on. There is no third path. There is no alternative. As we move on again, I would like to tell you that making this paradigm shift is not just about skills. It's also about the right tools, right skills, and the right mindset. If we provide the right skills to our academicians, it's not going to change. We also need to enable them to change their mindset. We also need to give them the right tools to drive the change. The right tool set right skill set, and the third one is right mindset. Let's move on. I would like to end with a very profound statement by a very famous spiritual guide, Sister Thakur Anukul Chandra. He says, this is how he defines education. According to Sister Thakur Anukul Chandra, education, according to Sister Thakur Anukul Chandra, systemic organization of habits and instincts with the purpose of fulfilling the becoming of life by a graduated active manipulation of behavior may be called education. If you look at this definition, it's very profound. He doesn't talk about science, technology, physics, economics, chemistry as education. According to him, education is about organizing habits and instincts in a systematic way, enabling students to fulfill the purpose of becoming of life by manipulation. Graduated manipulation of behavior is called education.